Welcome back to Post Sports Live. I'm your host, Jonathan Forsythe, and joining us in the Post TV studios are Nats beat writer Adam Kilgore. Welcome, Adam. It's been a while.
Yeah, man. Good to be
grind of a season, 162 games in, and it's just getting interesting now for you. So we'll have a lot to talk about the Nats with you. Obviously, Scott Allen and Neil Greenberg, DC Sports Blog and Fancy Stats writers. Welcome back, guys.
Thanks.
Is October the best month in sports?
Yeah, no question.
The best month? Yeah, I guess so.
I think it's second to March. I think it's still second
March
to March.
Madness?
Because in October you get the baseball playoffs, which is just so intense.
Yeah.
And college football, college football is like
Football,
great going on.
Hockey season starts.
Yeah, the camps are open for hockey and basketball. This is better.
All right, so we're on the eve of October. I'm excited. I think we're all excited as sports fans. Lots to get into on today's show. We're going to lead off with the Nationals, of course, winners of the NL East, and we knew that the huge no-hitter from Zimmerman, that the hottest team in baseball. Get Adam's thoughts going into the postseason, how it's different this year than it was 2 years ago when they won the division. We're going to get into the Redskins, and the Redskins have a nice sort of a mini bye week in a way, having played on Thursday night the debacle against the Giants. Kirk Cousins came back down to earth. We'll get your bold predictions for the Seattle game on Monday Night Football, and we'll talk about the NFC East, whether or not you guys think the Eagles are still the class of the East after their loss to the 49ers and the Cowboys' resurgence. Get some early season expectations for the Caps and Wizards as their camps get underway. Caps just under 2 weeks away from their opener, and the Wizards just have a media day yesterday. We caught up with some of the players to get their thoughts on how deep they'd make a run. And finally, this is a big week in College Park with the Terps having their first home Big Ten game. Of course, they get to welcome the Little Sisters of the Poor, Ohio State, to Bird Stadium for a big game. And Maryland's kind of hot, 4-1 going in. So we'll get your guys' thoughts on whether or not which quarterback would be better served as an upset, potentially, for Maryland to play. All right, I want to start with you, Neil, on just the simple expectations for the Nationals. Is anything short of a World Series championship a disappointment for the Nationals this year?
I don't think so, considering where they were last year and a new manager and some of the injuries that they faced. I mean, getting into the playoffs is a huge step, and if they get further in the playoffs than they have before, then I think it's just gravy. But making the playoffs, certainly a win for this team. And the fact that they're one of the favorites going into the World Series, I think, speaks volumes of what their season has accomplished so far. So, no, I don't think it'll be a disappointment. I think fans will be disappointed, but I think overall it's been a pretty successful season.
So regardless of what happens this first year, do you agree with that, Scott, in this first round in LDS?
I think from a fan perspective, not getting to the World Series, whether you win or not, would be a pretty big disappointment. I mean, this fan base was so close to tasting the NLCS 2 years ago. Last year, under such high expectations to not even make the playoffs. So I think they need to go one more step than just making the NLCS and to get through to the World Series, because everyone's saying that they have no weaknesses. They are kind of the favorite, yet they haven't put that pressure on themselves this year like they did in 2013.
Yeah, I would say I think it would be it wouldn't be a failure if they didn't win the World Series. It would be a disappointment if they didn't win the World Series. Certainly, I think internally and for fans and everybody. I think it would kind of be a little bit of a. It's hard to say. You know, in baseball, if you win 96 games, that's a great season. Right. Period. The playoffs are such a crapshoot. It's such you don't learn much about a baseball team over a 5-game series, especially, or even a 7-game series. That being said, it would feel, I think, like a little bit of a failed season if they played so well, and then to not even get to like the next round. I think if they make the NLCS, I think they can feel good about that no matter what. I mean, they wouldn't feel good about it right away, but it wouldn't feel like they wasted the season. I think it would kind of feel like that if they lost to the Pirates or Giants in the NLDS.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that there's a step, there's progress at least. They go one step further, even though it was 2 years ago. Yeah. And I want to ask you,
they're not like they're in their like this is the peak Nationals. Like they're not sort of about progress, but the nature of baseball makes it such that you can't throw everything out the window because they didn't advance in the 7-game series. It's just there's too much unpredictability and randomness in that short of a sample.
You've been the beat writer for the Nationals how many years now?
It's about 5th year.
5th year, okay. So a lot of changes since the last time they won the division 2 years ago, obviously. But what are, beyond the obvious Strasburg and the manager, like what are the main differences you sense from this clubhouse versus 2 years ago when they won the division?
Yeah, well, there's two things. There's there's the personnel, and there's sort of the intangible sort of vibe the team has. I mean, the personnel, I mean, you're talking about, I mean, even beyond Strasburg, it's like, their best pitcher in the NLDS turned out to be Ross Detweiler. Right. He's now like a spare part left-hander in the bullpen. Gio Gonzalez was their ace in 12. He is now their 4th starter. The upgrade number 3 starter was Edwin Jackson to Doug Fister. So that right there is a huge. Their center fielder was Harper. Now he's in left. You have Denard Span. Their defense in the outfield is a lot better. You can go down the list.
Right. Not to mention Rendon, right?
Yeah, Anthony Rendon is there now. Asdrubal Cabrera is like a different kind of piece.
Right.
Espinosa was in their lineup. Now he's like a sort of a fringe guy on the bench. So they've upgraded, and they're way deeper in the bullpen. We can talk about that for a long time. But I think, and now, given their experience in the playoffs, in that the crushing Game 5. Not only that, but to come back and have such a disappointing season last year, those scars have sort of it's almost like they have a second skin now. They're grown men who are not going to be messed with, is what they are now, which was not really the case. They were sort of didn't understand kind of what they were getting into. Craig Stammen put it really well. He said basically in 12 they sort of got to the playoffs and realized, oh my God, I guess we're pretty good. And this year, from the day one of spring training, they knew they were good. They knew this is where they were going. And sort of that is sort of the intangible sort of stuff you get from the team.
Right. It's not just all gravy from here. They are there to win a World Series now. Major concerns. I'm going to go down the line here, but start with you, Adam. You've written about a lot of this, but what would you say is the number one concern for the Nationals going into the postseason? They are the hottest team in baseball, and they're one of the odds makers' favorites. But what would you say on Matt Williams' list is sort of tops?
Yeah, it's a hard question because even talking to scouts who have been around and advancing the team for other playoff teams, they'll tell you this is the deepest team. This is the team with the fewest amount of flaws or obvious weaknesses. I would say, honestly, left-handed hitters off the bench, which is a pretty picayune thing to look at. But their only left-handed hitter off the bench is going to be Nate Schierholtz. So. And that's mitigated somewhat in the fact that you have Ryan Zimmerman probably going to be coming off the bench, and it doesn't matter, righty lefty, he's a great hitter anyway. You could have said their left-handers in the bullpen didn't look so strong, but now they add Matt Thorne to the mix late in the season. So yeah, man, it's hard to sort of pinpoint a serious weakness. Maybe you could say the range on the right side of the infield. There's some advanced metrics. I'm sure Neil could get into this. That say, Asdrubal Cabrera is actually, your eyes are kind of lying. He's not as good as he looks. LaRoche's range, especially according to some of those metrics, and even some scouts will tell you his range is not what it was. But you got to get pretty picayune to really nitpick with the team they have in the field right now.
All right, so we're going down rabbit holes with Adam and splitting hairs. Scott, what do you think from maybe a broader perspective?
Yeah, I was going to go broader and say, like Adam mentioned, scouts, everyone's saying you look at this team on paper and there are no weaknesses unless you get down to the really nitty-gritty. Yeah. So I'm going to say maybe the psychological factor. Some of the guys who were here 2 years ago and have some of those scars from that Game 5, some guys like Anthony Rendon who will be playing their first postseason, that first taste, it's just different. It's going to be different, and it's all a matter about how they are able to respond to that, whether there's an adjustment period or not. And I think that extends to the manager. Depending on the matchups.
First-year manager, right?
If the Giants win that wild card game, we're talking about a guy in Bruce Bochy who's won 2 World Series going against a rookie manager in Matt Williams, who's pushed a lot of the right buttons this year. But in the heat of October, how is he going to respond, and how is he going to make the right move or the wrong move in terms of knowing when to go to that lefty in the bullpen, or what sort of buttons will he push?
That's a great point. I wish I'd said that.
I think you have to be concerned with them peaking a little bit too early. They won 19 games in September. Past 20 years, only 5 teams have won 19 or more games in September and gone on to win the World Series. So it's something that you definitely have to be concerned with. A lot of things go right when a team is as hot as the Nationals are. And yeah, they don't have a lot of weaknesses, but there is that element of could the rug be pulled out from under them at some time. So if I have one concern, it's that perhaps they're peaking a little bit too early.
Let's go to the Zimmerman factor, and you touched on it briefly, but I want to get back into that. How do you expect at this point him to be utilized? I know it could change depending on the matchups in the series, but right now going into the NLDS, how do you expect Williams to use him?
Yeah, I expect that he'll be coming off the bench primarily. He might start against a tough lefty who's had a lot of success against either Bryce Harper or Adam LaRoche. You could see him in left, you could see him at first. Against say a Clayton Kershaw or a Francisco Liriano. It just so happens that LaRoche and Harper both have pretty good numbers against Madison Bumgarner. So if that matchup comes up, I would be surprised if Ryan Zimmerman started against that particular lefty. But generally, I think he's just going to be a weapon off the bench. I think that's what it should be. I mean, he is their best hitter when he's healthy, period, full stop. But he's not healthy. So why would you force it? Why would you, sort of disrupt this team that just won 21 out of 30 games to end the year to sort of like fit this potentially square peg into a round hole?
You did not mention third base.
I can't see him playing third base. I just don't think they would. They can put their season on the line, ground ball rolling toward Ryan Zimmerman at third base, given the history, given what the throwing troubles, given the health. It's just too much of a risk to get a good bat in the lineup.
All right,
and he can change a game too off the bench. I mean, that changes what's going on in the other manager's head. The entire late inning game. It's a huge weapon. I think they should just be grateful they get that weapon instead of trying to force him into a good lineup.
And being the type of professional he is, you don't expect that to be any kind of clubhouse.
He's the perfect guy.
issue,
Yeah.
Right.
No. Yeah.
You wrote about your expected rotation, which hasn't been announced yet officially, but I think we're all in agreement here that Strasburg, Zimmerman, Fister, Gio as the four. Do you guys agree with that approach? Or you can kind of interchange the top three. I would argue maybe based on the season, but that's what you expect.
That's definitely what I expect. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, those four.
Yes and no question. Damn, good job.
It's pretty cool. Well, it's a cool. They have an opportunity to do a very cool thing in Game 4. Say they play, especially so. This is like a sort of like very detailed thing. But
yeah, that's all right.
Say they're playing the Pirates, right? In Game 4, they have the opportunity to pull like sort of like the Buck Showalter move, where you put Gio out there. The Pirates platoon a lot. They're very flexible in their lineup, so they'll put all their righties in the lineup against Gonzalez, and they have the opportunity to sort of take him until the first hint of trouble. Say he goes 3 1/3, you got 2 guys on base. You bring in Roark,
right,
and you sort of like claim the platoon advantage, and either force them to empty their bench, or you just get your righty against their righty. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's like sort of like a piggyback situation with Gio and Roark in Game 4, and they had that luxury because Roark had such a great season.
Right.
And so I'm not sure that's what they're going to do, but they have that option. I think it'd be a good idea.
Let me get your guys' thoughts on a likely unsung hero for the Nationals through the postseason. And this team didn't have a clear-cut MVP, although I guess you would argue Rendon if there had to be one player, but and you didn't want it to be a pitcher. Neil, give me a likely unsung hero for this team in the postseason.
I think it could be Drew Storen. The guy came in, assumed the closer role at 11 saves. He has a sub-1 whip, 1-point-something ERA. He's done everything that this team has asked him to do to step in when Soriano faltered. So I think he's as good as any to really come in and close out a game. And he could be the guy that puts them through to that next round, which we all said was going to be a key to whether or not this is a successful season or not.
Scott, unsung hero.
I'll go as Dribble Cabrera. I think a lot of factors have played into why the Nats have peaked at this time, why they've been so hot in the second half, but I don't think it's any mistake that the offense has kind of picked up since he came over and got in the lineup at the trade deadline. Whether it's with his glove, the base running, or what he can do at the plate, I think he's someone to look for as an unsung hero.
Adam?
I'm going to go with Aaron Barrett, who's had a really good year as a rookie, right-hander out of the pen. Spent a month in Syracuse to he worked on a changeup and just kind of rested so he'd be ready for this month. I'm picking him because no matter who the Nationals play, if they play the Giants, Buster Posey's going to be coming to the plate at a key moment, probably in the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th inning. Same thing with the Pirates with Andrew McCutchen or Russell Martin or Josh Harrison. And Barrett has been that sort of wipeout right-hander they've gone to in the big spot with 2 guys on, and the other team's best right-handed hitter up. He struck out Giancarlo Stanton in a couple big moments this year. He faced Mike Trout when the Angels were in town. He's been the guy they go to in the 6th, 7th inning to get a big out against a right-hander, and those are going to be the outs they're going to need to get. So I think he's a name. He's not the biggest name by any means, but I think he's going to be in some big spots in this first round.
I'll go Ramos with my unsung hero. Guys, in the last 15 seconds, give me your prediction for the Nationals in the postseason. How far do they go, Neil?
I do think they make the World Series. I don't know if they win the World Series, but I do think that they make the World Series.
Make the World Series, Scott?
At this point, I think they win the World Series.
Win the World Series. Adam?
I'm going to say make the World Series.
The jinx
Flip
is
a coin
in.
after that. All right, I like it. All right, let's move on, gentlemen. So many more questions I have for you, Adam, too. The Drew Storen stuff, but we'll get into that maybe in future weeks. But enjoy the ride for the postseason. Let's get on to the Redskins, guys. And obviously they were blown out on Thursday Night Football. They've got another primetime game Monday night against the defending Super Bowl champ, Seattle Seahawks, who are also coming off a bye, on top of all other things to make it look even more daunting for the Burgundy and Gold. Last week's bold predictions, we were way off again, except Dan Steinberg, who nailed it. He predicted at least a combined 4 interceptions for Cousins and Eli. And actually it was 5, but it was 4 just with Cousins. So he came way back down to earth. Neil, give me your bold predictions for the Seattle game on Monday Night Football.
I think this is the game that Brian Arakpo gets back on track. Seattle doesn't have a great pass blocking unit. They're not terrible, but they're not great. So that I could see them keying in on Ryan Kerrigan, who's had a great season so far. So I think this could actually be the game that Brian Arakpo gets on track.
All right, so Arakpo back. Give me some numbers on that. You got to.
I don't
You're
know
the
any
numbers guy. Come on, you got to give me a number.
I'll say,
I would say
at least
0 numbers actually.
No,
0.5.
Yeah, so he'll have 0.5, so he'll be there. No, I could see him getting a sack, but I can see him getting at least between hits and hurries, at least 5 or more.
All right, he's in the mix. He's definitely due for that. Scott.
This is bold only because of how terrible they looked against a non-heralded Giants secondary last week, but I'll say they score 14 points somehow, some way. They're still going to get blown out, I think.
Okay.
But they're going to manage 14 points, whether it's Colt McCoy or another Darryl Young.
Is 2 touchdowns bold against the Seattle D coming off a
very
bye?
bold.
Is it?
Right?
There's no
Well, are they
shot,
receiving
yeah.
or rushing? Because if they're receiving,
It doesn't
that's
matter.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's like I would say it's bold they'll get that many. Like,
Yeah, no, that's what I'm asking. It seems. I mean, that's a lot. Okay. All right.
Could be
So
a
2
defensive
touchdowns
one,
for the Redskins.
So I saw the Seahawks tight end Zach Miller is out for this game. So my bold prediction is that some tight end you have never heard of is going to score 2 touchdowns. Because their safeties cannot cover, their linebackers can't
Their
cover.
linebackers, yeah.
They're just so bad in that part of the field.
I got
So
burned by Donnell.
There's going to
Fantasy.
be some dude you never heard of who's a tight end from Seattle and is going to get like 100 yards and 2
That's a
touchdowns.
really good one.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to go, guys, with Cousins bounces back. I think he throws for 300 yards against this defense. I don't think, and I think somehow the Redskins
Seattle's
cover.
secondary is pretty good.
I
right?
understand, but this is the NFL. You saw what the Tampa
And that would
Bay
have to be on
did
one
after
half
getting
of the field because no one
doors
throws on
blown
Sherman's
off.
half.
I'm going in on Cousins too,
Right.
and I've been the guy that's kind of been saying, hey, tamp down
Yeah.
your expectations for this guy after that Eagles game. I think he throws for over 300 yards against the Seattle defense. Maybe because they have to.
Maybe
When is the
garbage
last
time,
time a
yeah.
quarterback threw for 300 yards against Seattle? Did Peyton Manning?
This is called bold predictions, Adam. This is called bold predictions. All right. Guys, after 4 weeks, perhaps the best team in the NFC East is the Dallas Cowboys? Could that be the case, Neil? What do you think? I mean, the Eagles
it's
are
the
3-1, the
Giants.
Cowboys are
It's the New York Giants. I mean,
New York
they-
Giants.
Absolutely.
Oh.
I mean, the
What?
offense. Absolutely, the offense is clicking. You know, a lot of people in the preseason they were talking about Eli Manning completing over 70% of his passes. A lot of people laughed, but in this West Coast offense, he's had 2 weeks in a row where he's been over 70% passing, and he's really starting to grasp this new offense that was installed in New York. He's got Rashad Jennings doing the running game. He's got Victor Cruz to pass to. I mean, this team is legit, and I think they're finally getting on track, and they will win the NFC East.
New York Giants. I didn't
Yes.
expect that one.
Still
Scott?
on bold predictions. I guess. I'm going to go the Eagles. 3-1. They played some pretty terrible teams, but they're doing it despite the fact that LaShawn McCoy, their number 1 best player, has done absolutely nothing this season. I think he's averaging less than 3 yards per carry. And I've got to believe that at some point he gets on track. I don't know if there's an injury or something there, but the fact that they're 3-1, despite the fact that he's done nothing, I think that's still the team to beat.
Yeah, and I mean, a loss in San Francisco is not a bad
Right.
loss at all for them. What do you think, Adam?
I actually will take the Cowboys as the best team. in the
Really?
NFC
Wow,
East.
I didn't think I'd have 3 different answers.
I know, yeah. So, I mean, I just think that their defense seems like it's probably pretty bad. But I don't think there's no team in the NFC East that has like a singular weapon like DeMarco Murray running behind that offensive line. The offensive line is really good, and that's sort of how you can take a seemingly bad team to a very good team quickly. I mean, they've made a lot of smart draft picks along the line. It's paying off right now. So I think that just that one unit is basically better than any other singular thing any other NFC East team can do. So that's why I would take them.
So the Cowboys' offense is that much better than the rest of the
The running
division.
game, I think, yeah.
And they're running the ball more this year. It seems that they're more dedicated to the run. I don't know. I mean, the Cowboys, having beaten the Titans, Rams, and that's a
Saints,
good
I mean,
win over the Saints. Saints can't beat anybody on the road, though. I mean, but you're right. You
Wasn't
can only
doors, so
control
like,
who
yeah.
you. I mean, the Eagles don't have really impressive wins either to that
Right.
point. The Giants.
Yep.
Interesting. All right.
Okay.
Would you say Redskins are completely?
I'll say
Yeah,
Redskins
yeah,
are
the
coming back.
Redskins.
They're going to beat the Seahawks. No,
400 yards this
I would
weekend.
not say. I would agree with Scott. I think the Eagles are still the class of the NFC East, but it's certainly interesting at the top anyway. All right, let's move on, guys, to the Capitals, and let's get your thoughts. Neil, I'll start with you on realistic expectations. Opening day is what? Less than 2 weeks away.
Yep, just a
Less
couple
than
days
2 weeks away for the puck to drop. Realistic expectations for the Capitals, having missed the playoffs last year. In their first year under Barry Trotz.
Oh, they'll make the playoffs for sure. I mean, this defensive core is the deepest we've seen in quite a long time. They added Matt Niskanen, they've added Brooks Orpik, and most importantly, they've added Barry Trotz as a head coach. The guy has gravitas. He's got a plan. When you talk to these players, they all say that he has a plan. They know when the Christmas party is. They know when practices are. I mean, everything's laid out for them. It's all regimented.
Sounds like bad news.
And
They have a Christmas party already planned?
Yeah, they have I mean, it's all planned out. And I think the biggest key, though, is going to be the goalie coach, Mitch Korn. I mean, he's done a lot of interesting things. He has a little bit of an unorthodox style in terms of training the goalies. I actually watched him specifically work with Braden Holtby at one of the practices, and just some of the things that he was telling him as far as not going after pucks that are too far out of the crease because he can't influence those anyway. I mean, those type of things could really turn Holtby around. I think from a defensive standpoint, perhaps maybe Alex Ovechkin exempted, this is going to be a much better team, and I think that they are going to contend in the playoffs this year.
Contend in the playoffs. Scott, do you agree?
It's funny when he mentions Mitch Korn and reading Alex Pruitt's article on that, I can't help but think of Jim Zorn and kind of his unorthodox style in training camp with the brooms and throwing the pads at people. But to echo Neil, I think, yeah, this is certainly a playoff team. Barry Trotz, known kind of for his defensive style, and that's going to be great discipline for a team that's been lacking it for a few years. But I also think he's got more offensive weapons than he ever had in Nashville. I mean, that front line, Ovechkin obviously coming back, playing with Backstrom, I think to see what he can do with that defense, but also to have those sorts of weapons, I think this is a team that could win at least a round in the playoffs.
Adam?
Ross Dillard is a big hockey fan. He tells me that Trotz is a great defensive coach. He's going to be good for them. So I'm going to say they're going to the playoffs.
Who did Detweiler grow up being a big
Oh, he's a
fan
huge
of?
Blues fan. He's
Blues
from
fan,
St. Louis
okay,
area,
that
so
makes
he's.
sense.
But it's
big
not
Blues
just that
fan.
Trotz is a defensive coach. I mean, when he had offensive players, they did well. I mean, that was the kind of the roster that did. That's why I'm curious to see what he does with this team.
And Ross is like the Caps too.
Give me a round. Give me, if we have to quantify this, give me a round of the playoffs. You think they make it
Oh, I mean, they definitely make it into the second round, but beyond that, it really
to?
depends on the matchup.
Second
that
round?
they have.
Second round.
Second round?
Second round.
All right, second round. It's unanimous. All right.
Peer pressure.
Lock it up.
And would that be considered a success? No, I'm just kidding. All right, Wizards, guys. I think the expectations may be a little higher for the Wizards given their run last year. Adam, what do you expect out of the Wizards this year? Do you expect them to go deeper in the playoffs?
Yeah, I think they could make the Eastern Conference Finals. I love Paul Pierce. I think Paul Pierce is just perfect for that team. He can give them some sort of. Last year they didn't have the guy who could just take the ball and just give them some points without a lot of effort. I think he can do that. I think Gortat is not a lot of teams in the East have that weapon down low. And I think they are, if not the best backcourt, like Beal said yesterday. They're one of the best backcourts for sure. So I think their young team is going to get better and added a great piece in Pierce. And I'm going to say they're going Eastern Conference Finals.
That backcourt question is a tiebreaker for another show down the road for sure.
All right,
Scott, give me your expectations for the Wizards.
I think Eastern Conference Finals is a legitimate goal. I think Cleveland, for good reason, probably the favorite to win, but you never know how a team that has such expectations is going to gel and come together and whether they're going to fold under those expectations and pressure. So I think there's no reason that the Wizards can't be right there with Chicago for the number 2 seed in the East. I mean, who knows if Derrick Rose is going to stay healthy. You talked about the Beal wall backcourt. That alone, if they can avoid injuries, I mean, they went into the playoffs last year overcoming a lot of injuries. If they can stay healthier this year, I think Eastern Conference Finals and giving Cleveland a run for their money is a legit goal.
Yeah, I think Eastern Conference Finals is pretty doable. Probably finish second or third in the East with 47, 49 wins. I mean, if there's one team that's poised to take a big step with most of the players that they have instead of someone like Cleveland that got the best player in the league, I mean, I definitely think that the Wizards are one of them. You can see probably them take a big step forward this year.
You mentioned in the last 20 seconds we have, who gets the last shot for this team in close games down the stretch?
I think if it's a step play, I think it's Pierce.
Yeah.
Pierce, really?
Yeah.
Pierce?
I think Beal.
It's got to be Beal or Pierce, probably.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
Pierce can create his own shot from nothing
Right.
whenever he wants to. I think Beal can do that a little bit. I think
Right.
he's a little bit more of a catch and shoot guy now. Still, would you guys?
Yep.
Seems like
Yeah.
but I don't know. So I guess it depends on like if it's like if they're doing like an inbounds play for BL, you can do that, I think. But
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah,
it's a
if
good
you're just
problem to have.
throwing the ball to one guy and say, go get us points, I think it's Pierce.
Right. Let's move, guys, to, I mentioned that we caught up with some of the Wizards yesterday at Media Day to get their thoughts on the expectations for the season.
Just winning. That's the big thing. And, building a team and making it a team with all the new guys and all the young players and all the old players.
Definitely a playoff team this year. We were expected to get back to the playoffs and go from there.
Just hopefully to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Last year we got to the second round. We came up short to a great Indiana team, but hopefully this year we can get past that point and give over that hump and make it to the Eastern Conference Finals and then go from there.
I hope we're going to be champions. I hope we're going to go as far as possible. I hope we're going to, be a good team, and hopefully we're going to have have fun playing basketball.
Win, and more winning.
All right, so pretty cliched answers there, but at least you heard Eastern Conference Finals from Beal and you heard championship from Gortat, so they're thinking big. So
I seriously forgot that Porter was in the team.
That'll be another question for another show.
Yeah.
What his role is, especially with Pierce coming in. All right, guys, let's end the show today. Big game in College Park, mentioned at the top. Ohio State coming to town, probably about 10-point favorites. Which quarterback, Neil, gives Maryland a better chance of upsetting the Buckeyes on Saturday in College Park?
I think it has to be Caleb Rowe, only because he's a more traditional pocket passer, and he's the guy that actually targets Stephon Diggs in the passing game.
Yeah.
And that's really what the Buckeyes have struggled with. They've struggled with these talented receivers, so I think that's the way to do it. There's more plays designed for the run when he's not in the pocket, but I think he's definitely the guy that
So
gives
Caleb Rowe. Do you agree with that, Scott?
Yeah, I think normally you side with the dual threat and C.J. Brown, but given that Michael Brewer, the traditional pocket passer, was the one who went into Columbus and beat Ohio State when Virginia Tech scored that huge upset, I think you've got to go for some of the reasons that Neil mentioned with Caleb Rowe.
I would go the other way. I actually want C.J. Brown. I think if you're the underdog, especially facing an offense that has the capability to put up 40 or 50 points a game, I think you want to shorten the game. And the way to do that is ball control and running the ball more often. I think that's what Brown can provide for him.
The dual threat thing is, I agree that you want your sort of more seasoned players, and Brown obviously has been around a long time. He's hit with the injury bug.
I think too, by running the ball more, you shorten the game and give
Right.
fewer chances to Ohio State.
Right. Either way, you wouldn't expect Randy Edsall to come out and announce who his starter is going to be until the last minute, would you?
No, that might be like the pretty big. It might have been good that Brown got nicked up because they can play this game with him now.
Right. It is the left wrist, so it's not going to affect his throwing. So, do you expect to see Brown at all in this game?
I think even if Rowe gets the start, if he's healthy, I think, yeah, for some of the reasons that Adam mentioned, he does just provide a different look to that Ohio State defense.
Maryland currently #1 in the East in the Big Ten standings. I know it's early.
What hotel are you going to say about the Rose Bowl?
That's right, Indianapolis.
Book
We're
those
already
tickets.
making our plan.
Is
we're
this
making
where we
our
all give a
plans.
different team to win the Big Ten? Is that what this part of the segment is?
No, but how big? How big a game? Like, think back for a minute. How big a game is this in perspective for local college football? Is this about as big a game as there's been in the last 15 years? Florida State has come in as a top-ranked team.
Virginia Tech has played some big games.
Yep.
If you want to count them.
Yeah, Vatek's played some games up here in FedEx too. I don't really count Blacksburg as part of our area, but we do cover the team. So, what do you guys think as far as sort of how big a game this will be?
It's a statement game. Ohio State is a big-time program, and if Maryland could somehow come away with the win, like you said, they're already competitive in the Big Ten. This could put them over, at least get them in the conversation of perhaps winning the conference and maybe even sniffing a playoff spot. You never know. Stranger things have happened.
Sniffy a playoff spot? You don't mean like the final? You mean a bowl? Yeah, I got you.
A bowl, the committee or whatever.
Hey, you've been very bold today. I like that. I like.
I would also be really curious to the reaction if they won. If they could sort of if Maryland football could become something that sort of gets on our front page often.
Yeah, sure.
And is sort of can push through some of the Redskins and Nationals. If they beat Ohio State, I honestly wonder how big a deal it would be. It would be a big deal for that program, but is that program a big deal to sort of rise to the surface even when all sorts of stuff's going on?
So D1's the barometer now.
Another question is going to be how many fans from Ohio State are going to be in the stands versus
that'll be fascinating.
Maryland.
Yeah. That'll be fascinating. It'll be an interesting you'll know the state of the program based on the reaction to whatever happens and what the crowd is like.
Certainly a big opportunity for Maryland. All right, for Neil Greenberg, Scott Allen, Adam Kilgore, thanks for stopping by on a day off between the regular season and the postseason. Enjoy the ride, and we'll see you next Tuesday right here on Post Sports Live. Thanks for joining us.